Hi everyone, welcome back to PlanFirst Live. I'm Sian Larkin and I'm the Manager of Design Services at PlanFirst in Auckland. And today with us, I've got Richard and Brian from GIB. Do you guys want to just introduce yourselves and say hi?
Yeah, hi, I'm Richard Fuller. I joined GIB about 3 years ago, also around about the same time that Brian joined. Before I joined here, I was actually an architect for, registered architect for 22 years, running my own small practice, and just needed to get out and have a change. So I've joined this team at Winstone Wallboards, which is a technical advisor team, where we go out and do trainings to designers, builders, sometimes councils, do the odd site visit, especially in the Auckland region, and also man the helpline and emails to help resolve any issues that prop up with our systems. It's quite a varied role, and we get involved in also training within the company and also developing new systems. So, Brian.
Mine's far less interesting than that. I didn't run an architecture firm for 22 years. I'm Brian Lush. I'm the National Partnership Manager looking after the group owned build sector. So my role entails holding the relationship and key strategic sort of decisions and movements within the head office and key franchises of national builders. My previous life, way back when, I was a primary school teacher and special needs teacher. So I feel like my skills definitely work over and cross-correlate quite well. But looking forward to today and jumping into it.
Thank you. And today we're going to be talking about, let me add this to the stage. We're going to be looking at some of GIB's products, specifically their Curveline and also their acoustic products. So I'm going to hand over to you guys.
Right, thank you. Yeah, so we thought we'd talk about the Curveline product range first and foremost, and there might be some questions that come through, and just fire them through as we go. But one of the good things to start on with the Curveline product range is, you would have seen, and other people would have seen, that more curves are showing up as trends lately on Pinterest and Instagram, and it has started here in New Zealand with a lot more curves coming into fashion. And that's because we're sort of moving away from this harsh minimalistic styling with sort of sharp boxy spaces and towards these more softer organic formations. And we sort of look at that as this biophilic design influence coming into New Zealand. So, a lot of what we've looked at there with the Curveline is we've always had products that can be curved, but how can we then make a product and work with a system that can then be curved to a tighter radius as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the other options that can be curved, as well as the Curveline option there as well. But one of the really cool things there is that this is a really great way to add that little bit of sense of luxury to sort of your mid high-end sort of builds, and if you can bring it in to a good sort of practical price point, we can start seeing that being developed into more accessible build options as well. So the GIB Curveline product range is sort of allowing access. Sorry, right? Yep, right on there. So this is the GIB Curveline product here being curved down in the Christchurch factory where it's manufactured. So we bring that in. It comes as a 3.6 meter long length. It's 1.2 meters wide. It's 6.5 mil. That uses a system as 2 layers. So we use 2 6.5 mil layers there, and that sort of lines up quite nicely to a 13 mil plasterboard ranges. And as we can see down there, that 10 and 13 mil, just touching on that, those can be curved, but they're a much larger curving radius. So the minimum on a 10 millimeter product there would actually be a meter. We hear anecdotally that you can get a bit tighter than that, but for us and what we specify, we're wanting that to be at about a meter, with 13 mil being 1.2 as a minimum. And there's a bunch of products there that can be curved, including this the new Weatherline into that as well. So coming back to the Curveline product range, So often we're seeing this used in commercial projects, in the entryways of high-end residential, in the walkways, the commercial passageways, sort of high areas to provide a bit of natural so when we look into buildability, one of the key things to remember is that we've actually got some 4 videos, I think, online on how this product actually gets installed, done by one of Richard's colleagues, Doug. Quite an video. If you've got, I don't know, half an hour.
They're very short videos, yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe half an hour in total. It's a great way to look at how the product gets installed and the care as to what goes into getting a nice curve on your wall. So you can see here we recommend the use of a flexible metal track. We absolutely recommend there the use of metal studs. The least amount of movement in behind that curved wall is going to be preferable. You don't want any stopping out at all. It's just a rough idea of how the product actually looks. To get down to the specifications of what this product can do, you can see there a double layer system. On the concave, your minimum radius that you can get down to is 450 dry and 250 wet with the convex. So when we fix that vertically, we go into a convex curve, we can get it as tight as 250, and there has been some images actually tighter than that. I think one of the first installations was actually tighter than that.
Yeah. One of the first jobs that was installed in was a dental clinic or hearing clinic. Can't remember which one it was now. They used hearing clinic, and they used on an external curve just around the corner, and it was probably about a 150 curve. But it's not. We don't state because we're not confident that can always be done. But he was a very skilled applicator, and he was very confident, and he managed to achieve it. It came out really well. Yeah.
And so one of the key things to remember when you're looking at the Curveline product range is it is going to highlight any flaws or improper installation part. So you're really going to want to aim for that level 5 finish. You're going to want to avoid too much high critical light through, so you don't necessarily want too many wall lights shining down and things like that. It is going to show up any tiny little imperfections. Just trainers on this. So really good level of finish, and you want a nice paint job put onto that as well. Finish on those things coming through there. Now you put this one in here, and it's really important to remember. I'll throw it to you in a second, but yeah, we don't recommend Curveline to be used in the ceiling space. If you did want to have a curve into the ceiling space, we do recommend the 10 and 13 mil plasterboard. And it's important, as Richard's written there, that no curved ceilings do we recommend in ceiling diaphragms. Did you want to speak to the configurations?
Yeah, so we just get a few queries when we first introduced about being able to create like bulkheads, small bulkheads at your wall ceiling junction. And so we've provided a bit of guidance now on that, and you can actually do that, which is got to make sure there's enough framing in there, and you still are fixing that to that framing at 200 centres. So when you've got either a concave or convex bulkhead, you might be trying to conceal some surfaces, but it can be achieved. You just can't kind of carry it on into this kind of horizontal ceiling plane.
So one of the things we've got written down here, so currently the GIB Curveline isn't part of any sort of fire-rated system, but it does, under the ISO 5660, it does achieve a 1S classification, which broadly, and you can jump in here if you want, Rich, but broadly means it's a very low risk to contribute to any fire or smoke emulations at all. So the use of it in a lot of applications is going to be quite positive there. From a design point of view, did you want to talk about the bracing point of view quickly, actually?
Well, yeah, it's also, so our Curveline is a non-performance wall system. So it can't be used for fire, can't be used for bracing, but you can have wall bracing if you use your 10 or 13 mil plasterboards, but just not for that.
And the other things on the designer point of view, so the Curveline can take a tile weight of up to 16 kgs per square metre. Practically, what that means is you're probably going to want them to use your sort of mosaic tiles over the top. We have seen applications of it used in bathrooms with waterproof membrane tiles over the top, but you wouldn't want it to be having any direct water.
We actually don't. We'd actually state in our literature not to have a waterproof membrane over it. So it can be used in bathrooms, but not where it needs that waterproof membrane. So not in the shower area or shower over bath area.
So that direct application there. It's just that sort of fine tuning of the two. The last sort of thing there on the all of our plasterboard systems and things we talk about, it's always really important to remember that we use this non-toxic gypsum core, highly specialized and formulated, but it can be recycled. Your clean off cuts from any can be recycled or back through into agricultural products, or hopefully further into the future, more of a circular economy brought into vogue. So we've managed to bring this global trend of these curved walls where you see these arched ceiling ways, and managed to bring that into a more buildable, practical cost point within New Zealand, and allow for tighter curves, open up these spaces, entryways of these homes that allow this view to come through, and especially if you're thinking beachfront viewpoints and you're opening an entryway into the beachfront, and you've got this beautiful gentle curve emulating the natural environment. So quite a cool product to be innovated, and it's got quite a lot of uptake recently over the last years. It's been brought out about a year now, actually. It's had quite a good amount of uptake. We've seen lots of show homes being built using it, in conjunction actually with some of our other programs in there too. I think there are a couple of questions about it, Sean.
Yes, one of the questions that I do see here before we go into the acoustics is, how does a curved wall affect sound in my living room?
Did you want to jump in on me?
You go ahead.
So depending on how the curved wall is actually done, is a convex curved wall will dissipate the sound, and whereas a concave one will actually, you can capture that sound into a sort of a hot spot in a way.
Focal point.
A bit of a focal point. So if you're using a convex curved wall, and depending on the radius of that curved wall, you will dissipate that sound slightly. There's a few variabilities in there, and you've always got to keep that in mind. The overall combination of a curved wall with an acoustic board, like a braceline noise line, has been used to great effect across the building industry more recently. And so we can see those two work quite well to reduce and dissipate the sound in your living spaces.
And you guys will be able to give advice on that before the installation is done?
Yeah, we can talk to it, absolutely. We're not necessarily writing it out and testing every possible permutation, because there's so many variations.
And we aren't acoustic engineers also.
That's a big course.
Okay. And then will Curveline improve the resale value of the home?
Yeah, so that one again is somewhat subjective. If you are selling into the higher end of markets, and you've got a decent real estate agent who can point to it, absolutely. Yeah, it's a very much a luxury feature. It adds a bit of a wow factor straight away as soon as you walk in. But some people might not like it. Some people might like the minimalistic, sharp edges and older, different styles of design. So it's somewhat subjective. I wouldn't say it would hurt any resale value, but it definitely can boost some resale values.
I actually went to a seminar a few months ago, which Chinese person was talking about the feng shui of a house and how they try and exclude the sharp corners. And we actually introduced them to the Curveline, and they were very excited about that. So having curves and curved corners is actually good feng shui for your house.
That's true. Will it cost a lot more than regular walls?
A definition of a lot would be subjective again. Look, it's going to cost a bit more. It is going to cost a bit more. There's a bit more finicky stuff in there. So you've got your base plate that would need to be formed, whether or not you use the metal track or using some plywood to form the base plate. That will take a little bit longer than a traditional framing system. The actual plasterboard itself isn't too much more expensive than your standard board, but the installation, plastering and finishing will be a little bit longer. So your labour time is going to go up.
If your curved wall can be done with 10 or 13 mil plasterboard because it's a more gentle curve, you would use that because that is a cheaper board. The 6.5 mil Curveline is, when it's manufactured, slows the actual line down, and we do it in smaller runs as well, so that does increase the cost of it.
So as long as you use it here and there for features, it's not going to make an overall real difference.
And if you can design it in a particular way that you can use a 10 mil, the Curveline is for those tighter options. It's formulated specifically for those tighter options.
And can you retrofit it?
Yes.
All right. Okay, great. Richard, you can carry on then.
I might have to skip through a few slides here. Okay. One slide. So I'm going to just touch on our noise control systems and IT walls. So our main two documents or manuals that cover this is our GIB Noise Control Systems manual and our GIB Intertenancy Barrier Systems for Terrace Homes manual. Our noise control manual you see there is dated 2017. We're actually in the very midst of updating that, but I can't really talk to that yet because it's actually at brands going through for them to reissue the new brands appraisal. So there could be some tweaks to it before we can actually issue that. But that is coming, and it's hopefully within the next 2 months. So that document you see there on the left, that will look different in a couple of months' time. So for noise control, the basic principles are fourfold, and you need to have all four to get good noise control from a wall. First, you need structural separation of your linings or frames, and that can be done by either a double timber frame, or where you've got a single timber frame, you need a resilient rail or resilient mount to help separate that lining from the frame. Then you need insulation, and that's your kind of fluffy stuff that fills the cavity. That helps trap the air and also stops airborne noise, and so traps that airborne noise from going through, and that's critical for the high frequency noise. Then you need mass, and with our systems, that mass is provided with the plasterboard wall linings, and our GIB noise line brace line is the wall lining with the higher density, and that's why we specify that in most of our noise control systems. And lastly is sealant. Noise is just like actually holding a bag of water in your hand. If you have some pinpricks in that bag, the water is going to leak out. That is exactly what noise does. It will find any small gap in your wall and leaks through to the other side. We actually tested some of our systems in acoustic chamber, one with the sealant around the perimeter, and then one which we had the exact same system but didn't have the sealant around the perimeter, and there was a 20 STC point drop. So sealant is very critical. And you'll see from all our noise control systems that we actually do have all four elements in there. So I'm just going to go through our kind of three basic wall system offers. First one is what I deem a good system in that it actually meets New Zealand Building Code G6 requirements of 55 STC. And this is a single frame system. This is often popular because it is the most cost effective and also has the smallest footprint, being a single frame. But there are some limitations to this system, which means it's actually not always the best system to specify on a project. It has a GIB rail or resilient mount on one side. Because of that, the lining on that side can't be used for bracing, and it also can't have tiling over that lining because those rails or mounts are not designed for the extra load. Also, if there's penetrations for power points, etc., you can't really have the penetration on that rail side because any penetrations or surfaces going through that lining is going to connect it back to that frame again, and you're going to lose that isolation.
That's that lead you're talking about before.
Yeah, flanking going through. Also for like a two-story designed house with a single frame, you will have a real issue of actually resolving that flanking at that junction of the mid-floor to the other adjacent unit. So yes, you can have the single frame system, but you've got to really think through the limitations that you have on site and whether it's the best option. The better system is our double frame noise control systems. These are more robust, and you achieve that acoustic isolation by a minimum 25mm gap between the frames. That is a minimum. You can have greater gaps between the frames, not a problem. We do have solutions for flush box penetrations on either side in our manual. You also, if there is lateral stability required, we do have the GIB quiet ties to help with that. And as with the previous one, this one and the future one I'm going to talk to you about, all noise emitting devices should always be mounted away from IT walls. If you have your TV, your heat pump, your kitchen appliances, your bathroom appliances mounted against that wall, that's going to actually radiate through and actually affect the neighbouring unit. So you always got to be mindful of your layout when you specify your IT walls. And then our best system is our GIB barrier line system. So that's when you look at the manual, the GIB intertenancy barrier systems with terrace homes. This is a 25mm plasterboard central barrier installed between two frames with a minimum 25mm gap set out of that frame to that barrier. It's designed as a vertical noise separation, fire and noise, and it has very high fire and noise control performance, much higher than actually is required by the building code. So we have 4 timber frame barrier line systems and 2 steel frame barrier line systems. All have a 60-minute fire rating, whereas usually it's only a 30-minute requirement, and a noise control performance of STC 61 to 68, where you need 55. It is actually relatively cost effective and has a narrow footprint when you compare it with other central barrier systems. Importantly, it's also compatible with our GIB bracing systems. So when you're doing a row of terrace homes, you still actually have to individually brace each terrace home so that it can actually stand up on its own. By having this system, you actually do create 2 separate bracing lines, one each side of that barrier for each unit. It's just a single-sided brace, so you can have your BL1, your GS1, so fully compatible with the Easy Brace system. It's lightweight. You don't have to do anything additional to the foundations apart from having a load-bearing wall, protecting for load-bearing wall. Easy to install. It's just a score and snap cutting method, just like your internal plasterboard, your 10 and 30mm boards are. So you don't have to mask up when it's done manually. It's fast to install. We have found that once builders use it for the first time, they always come back and use it again. It is also durable. It has a mold and moisture resistant core. So once it's actually installed in the vertical orientation, it can actually be left exposed to the elements for 3 months before the building is enclosed. So that allows you that good kind of construction timeline.
One of the things that's important to remember as well is, as the family dynamics change of how people are living in New Zealand, we're getting more of that intergenerational living. Some of these noise control systems can be looked at different cost points and different effectiveness for those intergenerational living situations, where you might have a family with a grandparent situation coming through there, and each one of these can be used and applied at different price points and different effectiveness into those situations.
Yeah, they don't always have to be an intertenancy wall. They can actually be within your own house if you really want to have great noise control. So I'm just going to touch on 4 details which they're actually on our website. and actually will be in our new noise control manual, but are not currently in our manuals that we have published, but they are common details that have been asked for. So we have this GNS 345 and 346, which is your stepped roof detail between units. And this is a double frame system. So you've got your frame extending up on both sides. So the unit 2 on the right, the frame extends up to the underside of the roof of unit 1. And because of that cladding, which is on that higher roof facing unit 1, is actually on the framing of it's on the framing of unit 2. So it just needs to be compliant with E2. There's no combustibility restrictions on that cladding. But for the same detail on the one on the right, the 346, we've got the framing of unit 1 extending up only. So that wall above where the IT wall stops at the ceiling level of unit 1, that little wall extending up is its own two-way fire-rated wall system. And that cladding, because it's on the unit 1's framing but facing unit 2, would need to be non-combustible. And again, we've got 2 details for wing walls for double frame wall systems, where we've got both walls extending out as a wing wall. So that wing wall itself needs to be a two-way fire-rated wall system, and we do have weatherline systems for that. And then the cladding again is yes, facing into the units, but it's on its own framing, so it doesn't have to be a combustible framing cladding. Just needs to comply with E2. Whereas the 225 wing wall, where you've got only one unit extending out, that extension again needs to be a two-way fire-rated wall system, and the cladding now is facing into the upper unit or adjacent unit, and that would need to be non-combustible cladding. Again, we have GIB Weatherline fire-rated wall systems for those wing walls, and for that lower one, the actual wall lining at the bottom could just continue on as that half of the two-way system that was part of the IT wall, and you have your weather line on the outside. That's kind of, it might be a bit, it's a bit of a complicated concept, and this is where our helpline can assist. If you ever have these sort of situations and you want to get some clarity, just give us a call. In our noise control manual, we also have sub-tenancy wall systems. So these are walls that are actually within your house or within your office building, where you've got a desired noise control level that you want to achieve, but there actually is not a G6 requirement. So these systems are single timber frame or steel frame with linings each side. They do need to have the insulation in there and your perimeter acoustic sealant, but it just shows you what you can achieve with linings direct fixed each side with one layer or two layer of our different board range. So you can see there we've got a STC achievable amount of up to 48, and that is below your 55 requirement if there was the G6 requirement. But this is so
it's below that of an intertenancy requirement.
Yeah,
but rather significant. So if you were to have a home office, work from home office that you were looking to retrofit in, and you use that system, if you went for the 46, 48 level of STC sound reduction, you can happily work from home and have your children, your teenagers in the next room watching TV and be quite at peace.
Yeah. What this does illustrate, though, is that, yes, we've got your mass or your linings, we've got your insulation, you've got your sealant around the perimeter. We don't have that acoustic, we don't have the isolation between the frames or linings and frames. And so it just shows you to actually achieve your G6 requirement of 55, you do need to have those 4 elements. We're missing one here, and that's why we've got that drop. Substitutions. So we often get asked about substitutions for different products, and just like your sports team, you might sub on a player towards the end of the game, and is it going to perform the same, better or worse? You're not going to know until the end of the game. So that's the same with substitutions. They need to be tested to understand if it's going to have the same performance. So our standard response to substitutions is that if alternative products are substituted into GIB systems, it is the responsibility of the user to ensure that the performance of the system is not compromised. We don't tend to have any testing for substitutions. We test our system that has our products or elements, and we've done our fire test or your acoustic test, and we know exactly how it's going to perform. When you're putting in other products in there, we don't know. With fire systems, they are not typically reliant on the insulation for performance. So generally speaking, you can put any insulation that you need for H1 purposes or other purposes in a fire rated system. It's not going to affect it. For noise control, though, it's different. We have done some testing for polyester sound control infill, and we currently have that little article on the top right there in our noise control supplement, where we say for polyester sound control infill of a certain density and certain airflow resistivity, it will perform the same. That's okay. But yeah, for other products, we haven't done the testing. We have done some more testing in our new noise control manual, which will be out soon, and we are going to allow a substitution of other glass wool products based on density and airflow resistivity. So as long as it can meet those requirements. So airflow resistivity is it's the ability of your insulation to actually trap the air, and that is related to how thin the fibers of the insulation is. Glass wool does have very thin fibers, so we know it traps the air well and stops the airborne noise. For another option is wool insulation. We're not confident of that at all, because wool insulation actually has much coarser fibers, doesn't trap the air as well. So we know it won't perform the same as a glass wool insulation. Again, it'll be up to the provider of that wool insulation to actually be able to provide the information to satisfy that it's not going to affect performance. Generally for mid-floor, we're at ease. If you're going to go for a thicker glass wool insulation than we state in our system, that's not going to negatively affect the system. But yeah, going back to the original thing, if you're looking at alternative products and systems, then you're going to need that support from that provider of that system, of that product. I think that's about, yeah.
Oh, thanks very much, guys. That was very informative, and I think we can actually talk about this or both these topics for a lot longer than what we've got time for today.
Good.
So we might dive into more detail in the future. Next week's topic, we're going to talk about how to choose the right materials for your home. So that's going to be an interesting one, and we hope you're going to join us then. Thanks both of you for joining us. I can see that you both know your subject very well.
It's a pleasure.
And again, there's our contact details for those of you that do want to contact us. Anytime, feel free. But that's it for this week, and we'll see you all again next week. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.